Hello tacticians, it's Nox here, and this week sees the return of the Conquest Tournament Arena, and so I thought I'd update my tier list for that, considering all the changes that have taken place since the last one. But before we go into that, I just want to say my usual thank yous, and today they go to Baden, Kaziel, Rod Walton, Dr. Pepper, War and Magic, Cal Holzer, Helmeet, Vagromite and XVed. All of you have used my friend code and it is very much appreciated as it really does help me keep on top of things. So thank you once again. And now, the latest tier list. And here is my current tier list. Now obviously we've got room to add people on here and I am following a few rules. No more than 3 people can be at any tier for each specific area, as it just keeps everything nice and clean. And let's start with the melee team. Now if you haven't come across Ragnar, Blackmane and friends, count yourself lucky, as it is a very good team to use. Very often you have Ragnar, Celestine, Godswill, who is absolutely fantastic in the Conquest Arena because of his ability to knock someone off a point. And then you would probably include Marnius Calgar with Ornn Shi. Ornn Shi can then obviously use his ability with Ragnar Blackmane to really amp up the critical chance for the rest of your characters. Or, if you don't want to use Ornn Shi, or you don't have him, adding in Ancient Thorid can really amp up your defences, because his active, the Unbreakable Duty, will mean that all friendly units within 2 hexes will receive less damage until your next turn. And this is huge in this tournament arena, mainly because if you're sitting on a point, you're not attacking anyone and getting rid of their characters, and if you are receiving less damage when they attack you, well, your characters are going to be alive and you are going to be very close to them to launch your counterattack. There are others for this melee team you wish to consider. Shark does a very similar role to Godswill, where he can pull someone off a point and land on it himself, switching who owns the point and netting you another point to complete the task. Or if you don't like Shark, as his normal attack isn't very good against heavily armoured troops, you could put in Brother Jaeger, who can just lock someone in place, so they're not going to run off and grab a point. As for the rest of the melee, well, you've got the other Space Wolves there, with Arjak being able to capture a point in the first turn, Ulf, who is fantastic against summons, who we're going to get onto those a little bit later. And now I know there's a couple of other favourites out there, but I don't rank them as highly. They're very useful in very specific circumstances. First of all, there's Tank Smasher. Now there are 1 or 2 maps where he can literally run in a straight line, capture all 3 points, and probably do a little bit of damage as he goes through everyone. But you can't really rely on getting those maps. Having said that, he can still push at least 1 person off a point, which can itself be very useful. But as I said, there are better options. And then you have Maladus. Now this guy does hit like a freight train. He can take a beating. However, he's also extremely slow, so unless you've got a way to get him to where he needs to be, you could be waiting all day for him to get there. Next, we have ranged, and no one's going to be surprised at the kings here. Got Calendis, who is able to capture 2 points and possibly kill a person with one of her shots. Not too shabby, and definitely the queen of ranged combat. You've got Thaddeus, who can shut down Overwatch and really does deal out some damage, although, let's be honest, he can't take a punch. And then you have Rayvas. This character just goes on Overwatch and really makes you keep your distance. Now, if you can do that for a turn, her active is pretty much spent and you can almost ignore her. But having said that, if you've got Rayvas, you'll probably be using Shosel as well, who has the sniper drones. And again, this is not a character you want to leave alone, because those sniper drones, they're going to take your head off. And my personal favourite is Sarkwell. Do not sleep on this guy. If people like bunching up, his active can really ruin their day and leave the lines open for the rest of your characters to mop up. Moving on, don't overlook Certus in this game mode. Yes, he is slow, but he has got a range of 3, and his active does something very similar to Godswill. It will push someone off a point, as long as they're not a large target. And that on its own can be fantastic. Then you have Vindictor. Again, she is not a character to be underestimated. Being able to unleash 2 attacks in 1 turn means you're not going to want to bunch up if you see her. And Sybil, not only does she give your characters infiltrate, her active ability can just kill someone straight off. However, just like Thaddeus, she can't take a punch and will go down very easily indeed. And Morgan Ra. There's going to be some of you who are raging this. Why is he so far down? He needs help, and the help comes in the shape of Eldrian. If you can buff each of his attacks, he is very good. But as it stands in the tournament arena, you're better off doing 1 large punch, as his buddy Calendis shows. Moving on to the summon, Abraxas is by far, at the moment, the best one to use. The reason for this is in the Conquest Tournament Arena, people tend to spread out because they'll try and capture multiple points, and this allows you to put Abraxas into the middle and summon your summons. They also get the benefit, being demons, of getting the additional psychic damage in combat, which will go straight through the enemy's armour. Very useful if you're coming across that melee team we talked about earlier. It's not a complete answer, obviously, but if you can maximise the number of summons using someone like Yazagor, as you can see there in the A slot with support, you can really get a lot of summons on the battlefield, and you don't even need Yazagor in this one. You could quite happily just move in with Abraxas and probably get almost a full complement of summons, which will cause a few issues, unless they've got answers such as Marnia's Calgar with his AoE, or Ulf, who will just murder summons. Archimatos, Aleph Null, and Commissar Yarrick are all fantastic choices if you like summons. All of them create summons which immediately attack the enemy, and in the case of Aleph Null, it can really fill in those spaces around Celestine and kill her without her summoning anyone else. Now, probably a very controversial one here is I've put Bellator fairly low on this tier list. And whilst, yes, he is very tanky and can take a hit, the amount of damage he puts out is kind of suffering the same issue that Morgan Ra does. You need someone like Eldrian to help buff him up. Although if you have got Calgar, he will do as well. Castellan Creed is also here. Now, you only ever really include him if you have Commissar Yarrick, and that's because of his active. Once Yarrick has summoned in his troops, you can send Creed in to do the same thing, and Commissar Yarrick's troops have another go. You can use Creed on his own because he is fairly safe, because he will switch with Sergeant Kell if he gets attacked. And if Kell is out, instead of getting 2 guardsmen, you'll end up getting 3 guardsmen because of Kell's passive ability. And finally, Corodius. Well, he is a summoner, and his summons are actually quite good. The problem is they probably won't survive long enough to do anything, and Corodius again has got the same problem that all Nurgle does, and that he is very slow. By all means, still use him if you're a Death Guard fan, just don't expect him to do as much as, well, anyone else. Having said that, he may be able to do a decent punch himself with his plasma, doing significant damage nowadays. I am creating this again from scratch, so if I have missed anyone out, please leave it in the comments below, saying where you think they should be placed. And remember, I am only going to try and keep it to 3 per slot, so there's a few we can fill up here. But if you do suggest that someone should go in the S tier for melee, let me know who should be moved from there. If you like these videos, then it would be much appreciated if you at least think about using my friend code, as it really does help me out. Or if you or your guilds are looking for a new home, please reach out to any of the guilds shown, as we'll always welcome new people into our midst. As always, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you on the battlefield.